Okay, I'm going to have a go at producing a watercolour now, and I'm going to do some pen work over the top at the end to show I can illustrate a little bit better. So I've drawn this picture. I actually done it a little bit lighter. I've done that so you can see it. So underneath there is a light picture, and I have put that on my Dropbox underneath, so if you wanted the picture you can have it and then print it off, but I would just draw one myself. I've printed it on nice paper, and as you could probably see where the light's hitting here, this cheap photocopy paper is rippled, and you'll get that if you work on a thinner paper. So this paper is quite thick, and you don't have to have it massively thick, but it will stop it wrinkling so much. I'm going to start painting. Now this is going to be stage one. Stage one, I'm going to wet the area I plan to work on first, and then I'm going to avoid using white paint. I'm going to try and use the white of the paper. So here we go. So I'm going to paint the sky in. Now, a bit of a dirty old brush. But it's nice and clean when I washed it out, so it's painting clean. You don't have to use a thick brush, a wide brush. If you've only got a small detail brush, you can still paint with that. So I'm going to try some blue on here now, and what happens is, you can see up there it's not quite wet at the top. I'm going to get that a little bit wetter with just some water, and then I'm going to paint in my sky. So I'm going to do it quite dark at the top. And what I'm doing is working from left to right or right to left. Do not go up and down on a landscape. Avoid that, and go from side to side. Now my tree, it's there, I'm painting straight across it. So I'm going to not worry about the tree. I wouldn't paint it so opaque that you can't see the tree. But what you want is it translucent. So I'm painting the blue of the sky in, so you can still see the white of the paper. And the secret with watercolours is actually using the white of the paper for white, and then making the paint more transparent. So in some areas it's going to be quite thick like that, and then in other areas I'm going to just have it a light wash. So that light wash then becomes the cloud. So I'm not actually painting the cloud in, I'm just avoiding painting the cloud with paint, and then that will appear like a cloud because I've used the white of the paper. I'm not going to worry about too much about going over the edge there. Just get it nice and loose. And things in the background can be out of focus, so this achieves that. So there's my sky. It's quite dark when I'm looking at it here, but when I look on the video I notice it's quite light, so I'm just going to darken it a little bit. I would avoid using black early on too much because it's hard to bring back, but I've got a little black here, and I'll put some there. I'm going to actually moody the sky a little bit. Picked up a bit of red then, that doesn't matter. My landscape. I would avoid using too much dark colours over the tree, so if you that I've avoided the tree there, but generally I'd just go across the tree. Right, so I'll get the sky a little bit moodier, so it's dark and there's a rain cloud coming, and that is very, very wet. Oh, got a little air on there. Now, what I plan to do now is paint another area in, but what I would avoid doing is painting an area next to it. So, stage 2, work on an unrelated area. That's not next to each other, so your colours do not bleed into each other. so I'm going to work on the bottom. I'm going to work on the water, which is going to be a little river running through, or a brook or a stream, and I've got some foliage drawn down here, but I'm just going to paint straight over it. I only drew it initially to get an idea of where I wanted the stuff, where I wanted my picture to be. I'm using the same colours because they're going to reflect in the sky. So the water is going to be out of focus, so as if it's ripply. I've used two blues there, but one blue, any blue, as long as you sort of reflect what's happening in the sky. Now, that was done quick there. But what I've actually got is that washy look, and that works well, obviously, on a little stream coming through. Now I'm going to see if I can get that tree reflected in there. So, because this is wet, if I go wrong it won't matter, because I could just blend it out a little bit. So that's going to be the tree reflected in the water. So I'm planning it out there. And you notice that I'm not drawing the exact lines of the branch of the actual tree, just getting it so it's overlapping the areas, so give that idea that the tree's there and it's casting a shadow. Now around the bank there, I might actually make it a little bit darker, because the bank the light seems to be coming this way through the tree, so the bank's going to cast a shadow. And it'll help me later when I want to join up the two areas from the land above. So there is my darkened, the bank casting a shadow into the river. Now I'm going to work on the next area. I am rushing through this, by the way. I would be taking my time really if I was doing it for my own pleasure, but we're 7 minutes in, so we're going to motor on. Right, I have clean water and brushes so the colours stay sharp. It's always a good idea to have clean water. I'm just going to go ahead and work on this now. So I'm going to avoid the area next to it and hope that a little bit that the top area is a little bit drier so the colours don't bleed. Now I start painting there, and that is a little bit that's a bright green, so I'm going to turn it down. Doesn't matter if I go wrong, I can just work over it again. Now if you have it nice and dry at this point, you can get a really nice sharp edge on the top of the trees there. You're going to get darker areas in there as well. Notice how I've just gone over the tree. If it's a translucent colour, that means you can see through it. It won't hurt actually. I've got some bleeping into the sky there. Look. I can either change my tree line, or I can pull it back in with my finger, and that's what I just made it dry. So go like that. Doesn't matter that I make a mistake, it's going to be my picture. Don't want to make too many. So now I'm going to work on the area here. I'm going to go through the gate, so that I end up not trying to resolve that later. And I'm going to do the field. Paint that with water. I'm going to do that then, straight with paint and not break my own rule. So, right. Now, this is going to be a bit of a path here, so I could actually change the colour there a little bit just to make it separate it. Those two lines there gives it a little idea of perspective that you put into the picture. You don't have to have that. Again, I've dipped my brush in the wrong green and it's come out almost fluorescent, so I'm going to just turn that down. And the same on this side. And again, I'm going to worry about the tree. I'm just going to paint straight through it. trees for reference when I want to paint it in later. Now if I'm painting a really dark bit of, if I'm painting something really heavily dark like this here, like there's a shadow on the hedge, I perhaps wouldn't go over the tree because that's going to be harder to resolve, but a transparent wash would be okay. Now, I'm going to break my own rule here. Normally I would sit here now and I would dry this, and I would get my air dryer. I've got one here somewhere, and off I'd go and dry it so my hedgerow didn't bleed into the top and bottom, but I'm going to go straight on with this now. Right, so here we go. Stage 4 then. I'm going to have sort of more of a rustic edge. Obviously you could use a different green, and spend time mixing a green, but for me I don't want to spend all my time just mixing a colour, because I need to get on and get my picture finished. So, and again on the edge, because this is a stronger colour, I'm avoiding the tree a little bit, and I'm going to avoid it even more now because I'm going to use black, because that black at the bottom of the hedge is going to cast a shadow across the hedge, and so when I get to the tree I'm going to avoid going into the tree. And if I then create a shadow between the green and the brown, it helps just one colour fade into another with the shadow of the hedge. Right, there we go. Now, to resolve this sharp line here, I could, if I wanted to, I brown my brush, so it must be a muddy bank. Just soften that edge up, and I can also use some black there as though there's a bank, and some brown. I'll put some more brown in. So this, at this point, I've got my watercolour gun. Oh no, I've got an area here, the green area. I'm going to have to get that in. So let's paint that. There's some green on that brush. Doesn't matter. I'm going to then work in here. Now, areas that are close to you are better if they're defined. So if you had a drier bit, you wanted to put some grasses or turf in there, that was quite dry, that would be the time to do it. This would be the time to do it. Obviously you could dry it and then work on it, but I'm at this stage now where I've got a painting in. Now that is, I've rushed that painting. That is 13 minutes, so I would take longer on that, but I want to work on it further now. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to dry it with a hairdryer and work on it again. So, I'm then going to work on it in pen. So I'm going to pause and then I'll come back to it. Well, I've decided that this is still wet, and I've actually practiced one, and that's dry. So I'm going to work on my practice one. What I'm going to do now is I'm just going to use an ordinary pen. So we're on stage 5. You dry your work so you can work over it in pen. I've written this bit in bold. It's important. Only draw on dry paper, as it will stop your pen working. So if you start working into a picture that is wet with a pen, then you will end up just ruining your pen. Now, I do like biros, because with a biro I tend to be able to draw very lightly and get a really faint line there, and then you can actually push down heavy and get heavier lines. So this is my tree. If I wanted some light bit of bark in there, I could actually draw very lightly, and I can actually draw heavy as well, so to define the tree. So biros are lovely. There's one disadvantage with a biro I notice. that when you put your picture up on a wall, if you're going to display it, then your biro might fade. You come back a year later and the biro's faded. But if you're keeping it in a book, then that won't matter. And then, so I do like a biro. Pens, just like this is just a handwriting pen. Oh yeah, it says handwriting pen. These are really beautiful as well. Obviously it's harder to get the lighter lines, but you can lift the pen off the paper and get a lighter mark on it, and you can control it, not to the same extent as a biro, but they are really nice because they are really defined. Now I am drawing in my tree, so I'm going to keep working on this. I'm going to get the bark in, and where I got the translucent bit of picture below before here, that's going to be worked over. So as you can see, I can actually illustrate my watercolour now by working over it in biro with a pen or a biro. What is a little trick here is that the things that are close to you, they stand out and look like they're in the foreground because they're sharper. So if I draw a bulrush there and I have a nice sharp edge on it, that is going to appear closer. Whereas if I have a wash like this, it will appear in the background. So you can actually help the perspective of the picture by just using a pen on the things that are close to you. So I would avoid doing these hedges at the back. They're just, or trees. That is not got a lot of definition in it. I'm going to work on the definition on the tree and the grasses on the bank there. So I like doing this little one where you draw a line up and then I put a line down, and then I can make it look like a piece of grass bending over. And also I'm going to end up with some of these dark marks, brown marks here that I put in earlier. I'm going to not go round them, so I just encircled them with black, but put little marks in there to make it look like it's tufts of grass. So avoid going like that and drawing an actual like that and drawing around it so it's a thick line. You know, you might just want to get a line on one side and just some light marks on the other. So I'll do that again just to show you, so you can get there's a bit of grass sticking up there, and then just lightly on one side make some marks, but on one side you can have it quite light and on the other, and you get a nicer range of marks then. So I'm going to have a little work on this, and then I'll come back. I'm going to pause it and then I'll come back when I've done some more and show you what stage I'm up to. Right, I've been working on this now and I've gone over in pen. I noticed I was getting all my bulrushes a bit straight, so I've bent a few over and made it more naturalistic. I put a little fence in there as well. You notice how the fence posts get thinner and closer together as they go further away, and I did a little bit of a loop in fence to help you drag your eye in a little bit. I've been working on this bark. I think I'm going to need to work on it a lot more. I think the little thumbnail at the start of the video, I might put the picture when it's finished so you can see how it's going to turn out. I am fortunate because I've just realised that when I've done this that the actual pen is water soluble, so I can use the pen much like a watercolour, and I can get that again and work into the picture with the ink actually bleeding out in the same way I have a watercolour. So what I'm going to do is carry on and work on this, and then I'll put as a thumbnail on the start of the picture. But so the first 4 stages is getting the watercolour done, but then the last one, the illustrative bit, is going to be working on it in pen and bringing the foreground out by working on them and making them really defined, and then using the watercolour in the background to make that look like it's receding. Okay, that's it. Good luck. You can have a go on that. Thank you.